Hello, all, and welcome to the return of The Best Girl. Yes, I know you all were on the edge of your seat for this series and eagerly awaiting its return. That said, if you're a new viewer and you're new to the channel and you don't know what The Best Girl is, let me explain. It's just me rambling on, occasionally with a guest, talking about some of my favorite female characters in anime. My previous episode, I was talking a little bit about Chio Sakura with Karabu-kun, and it was a good time, but I just haven't been feeling like doing an episode in a while. Been busy with other things. It was enough trying to not go completely inactive with videos in general. But I'm finally got a break, feeling good. Wanna talk about some anime girls. So let's go without further ado. Today we're going to be talking about Haruhi. Yes, the Haruhi. The girl herself. She is by far one of the most, at least widely recognized anime characters. Perhaps not so much now compared to the way the scene was maybe even a few years ago. But she is definitely a very, very notable character and definitely a point of contention among many. So to briefly share my thoughts on Haruhi as a series or a franchise, I really loved the series. I even liked Endless Eight, and yes, if you're dubious to my claim, just go watch my old review of the Haruhi season 1 and 2 plus the movie. It pretty much is. It's still pretty accurate to how I feel about the show. Audio quality and narration isn't the best, but I think it still holds up okay. And you can even read my review in text on my blog. But yeah, I really, really, really enjoy the franchise. I think it's very strong, very unique. And even though it was the foundation for a lot of meta type humor based shows that would come in the future, there's never really been much, there's not been many shows that strike the same chord in me as Haruhi does. It does everything just right. That's one of the things I often see people discussing the Seinfeld effect, where the accomplishments of an older series are diminished by newer series imitating it. But oftentimes, when I see the original that made it so big and so great, or so popular, it still holds up really well because it got popular because it was good. It wasn't just because they had a nifty idea. It's because it was executed brilliantly, and that's how I feel like Haruhi is. It hits on all the emotional core is really strong, but it's also playful. It has fun with it, but the characters are compelling. You really like everyone, and the way it progresses makes you want to see more. And of course, it's impeccably animated, well directed. Of course, Kyoto Animation did it. I mean, is it the first season is a little weak. Looking back on it now, not all of the effects hold up great, but it's overall pretty fantastic. And the movie, of course, just wonderful, wonderful. But I'm here to talk specifically about Haruhi, and this is something I often see. Even though a lot of people love Haruhi, that's very apparent. Even looking at the best girl contests held on our anime, she is almost always very high up there, but never, I would say, never really in competition for the top two. Maybe I missed contests where she was top two, but I don't think so. And it's because she is kind of annoying and kind of mean and pretty much unjustified in almost all of her actions. And she somehow ends up having the world revolve around her and everyone has to do her bidding. Which I can completely understand because there's a lot of characters that on a like base description level are very similar to Haruhi that I just absolutely hate. I hate it when characters are entitled and everyone just does their bidding. But often in that case, it's like why do people like help this person out? They have no reason to be their friend because they're just mean and harsh and constantly abusing them. In this case, they circumvent that by making her a literal god who you do not want to upset because otherwise, you know, things are not going to go well. But they also make sure that she has an arc to it. She doesn't just stay the same from the beginning. And even from the beginning, she's not that bad. She does have elements of her that are really annoying or really cruel, but she's just so bubbly. It's hard to hate her. It's just hard to hate her. She's always just, she's got this go get 'em attitude that, you know, I really love. I've talked about this before in previous episodes, especially when I was discussing why I find Ohana from Hanasaku Iroha so compelling. That just grab life by its neck type of. I'm sure I'm getting that phrase wrong, uh, but that type of attitude towards life that she has, live every day to the fullest, is very appealing, and you can't help but appreciate that element to her character. And not only does she grow, but also our main character, I guess you could say, Kyon, also learns from her. It's sort of a joint experience. She learns to be more compassionate and caring towards other people. And you definitely see this, especially in the episode Live Alive. I think that's the title, of where, of course, she sings the famous song, and in this great sequence, and you see her stepping up to help someone out, um, to really to no benefit of herself, just out of kindness, and something that you probably wouldn't have seen her do earlier in the series. And this, or even in the film, you see her really showing her care for Kyon, or in the finale to season one, you also see that. These subtle hints, it's never like a big arc, because it's not like the core of the show isn't just about Haruhi. Funnily enough, it's about the whole group, and Kyon's arc sort of runs in parallel with Haruhi. And of course, the books go much further with this, since this only covers the beginning, and unfortunately, we don't get to see more of her development, because I know there is more. But what we do see is a very realistic, steady pace at which we see her changing for the better. And she's so fun. She's just a fun, very very fun character. And even though she is somewhat abusive and harsh, the show makes a very clear distinction between when it's just fun and games and when she's actually crossing the line. Oftentimes, Khan makes his snide remarks, but as we see in the film, it's ultimately for the better. He enjoys life more when he's with Haruhi. He likes the excitement as much as he doesn't want to admit it. But when we do see her cross the line at times, and when that happens, she is called out for it, and she ultimately has to admit her fault. So she's a very flawed character, but a very fun, very appealing, very just, like I said, bubbly character. And how could I say, without her animation, of course, this would be harder to come across. But the multitude of expressions and emotions that Kyoto Animation gets out of her design is quite impressive. They can get her more melancholic moments, her distant gaze, her smug expression, her joyful smile, her excited, looking excited like she has something in store, her the expressions that she can convey, her goofy smile, the famous one where she's pulling her eye down and sticking her tongue out. There's so many different expressions that she has that without it, of course, her character wouldn't be nearly as multifaceted. And not even just her expressions, but her movement. She's so all over the place, and the way her hair flies around her and her clothes flies around, even the opening scene to the film to Disappearance, where she busts in the door, is like just so emblematic emblematic of all of everything that's so fun and exciting and great about her character. Perhaps I wouldn't want to know her in real life, but even then, people say that, but I don't know. She seems like she would be somewhat pretty fun to be around. Sure, she can be somewhat obnoxious, but she's the kind of person who's outgoing where I wouldn't be. You know, the yin to my yang. She'll always be coming up with something fun and exciting to do, some sort of new goofy discussion, even if it's a laugh at how absurd some of her ideas are. There's always something fresh and something fun. She knows how to keep it fun, even if there's a lack of self-awareness in some to some extent. So yeah, I absolutely adore her as a character, and her place in the show is really effective, especially when you get to see the disappearance world version of Haruhi, where she's seems much more reserved at first, of course, compared to her high school days when she was very open about her search for aliens and espers. When Kyon first approaches her, she's at first pretty closed off, is pretty unsure of whether or not she can trust him. And you sort of see like what she could have been, and this reminds you why you like the Haruhi we have so much, especially as she finally lets down her walls and gets excited at the prospect of helping Kyon get back to his right timeline and fixing the way things are, even though this literally means that she will cease to exist. But she's excited about it. She's like, yes, take me back to the good times. Let's do things right. And it's so much fun. First off, her future design is great. Love the long hair. Of course we have the famous scene where she's in the big t-shirt, and it's like, poof, get a little hot in here, huh? But her main world design, I really like. First off, I love the short hair that's also very fluffy. It's got lots of motion to it, so it's very expressive. Like I've said before, oftentimes repeating myself, but it's all about what I value. I think hair is really underrated in how it can be used as an expressive tool on behalf of the characters. Um, Ghibli films are particularly good at using that. I've noticed, I've been on a bit of a Ghibli kick recently, and I've noticed that oftentimes hair especially in the female main character, is very strongly um, uh, animated. They often have something that will be blowing around the wind almost nonstop, and oftentimes there will be a change in haircut throughout the movie, sometimes to signify a change in character trait or like a growth in the character, which is especially great. Really, really wish we could get a little bit more of Ponytail Haruki, but you know, alas. So, just coming at it from a general perspective, everything about her is is unforgettable. She's really memorable. She makes this incredibly strong impression upon you that even if it's a little bit annoying, isn't gonna leave you. And I think that's part of the reason why I often just think about the show, and it's so easy for me to come back to, because these characters, and especially Kyon and Haruhi, feel so familiar. They're almost like they're people I know. It's so easy to come back to, like I never left, and just rewatch it. And every time I watch, so far I've rewatched it, I think 2 or 3 times, um, and it's just so easy to watch, and it never feels like it's getting old. I feel like I could rewatch it today and then rewatch it tomorrow, and I'd have no problem, because everything about it is so very appealing and so fresh. Even now, it still feels incredibly fresh, and I'm doubtful I'll ever find another show that hits quite the same notes as Haruhi did, which is why it's such a shame that we'll almost certainly never get another series. It's pretty disappointing, I have to say. I've read a few of the light novels. My plan is to go back and read the entire series because I have to say these are some of the. I mean, I haven't read a lot of light novels, but generally they're not considered the height of entertainment. But the copies I have read are excellently translated. Like it feels like I'm reading the show. Like I can picture the scene. I can hear the voice actors, be it the sub or the dub. I love both. Both are really good. I think I prefer the sub a little bit, but I really like both. I can picture the scenes in my mind's eye. It's very the way they translated it, I can tell was very true to the novels. And of course you have to take some liberties, but the liberties only further elevated it rather than being a point with which to fault them. But of course light novels haven't gotten a new release in who knows how long, so sigh. I do want to touch briefly on the Haruhi that made an appearance in the latest installment in the Haruhi franchise, which was the disappearance of not no 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 yes disappearance of Nagato. I think I must be insane. I think that's what it was called. Um, which I watched all of because literally anything featuring these casts is like I have to watch, and they got the original voice actors, so at least I can listen to their voices in character a little bit more. That's how desperate I am for more of these characters. Of course, it wasn't the best show, wasn't the worst. It was kind of just 6 out of 10 from me. But the best moments in the show legitimately were when Haruhi and Kyan were talking. Like, it was kind of funny how much Haruhi steals the show in every scene she's in from Nagato, who's supposed to be the main character, and you're supposed to be rooting for her and Kyan. That's the whole point of this like alternate dimension or timeline, alternate timeline, is that this is the one where Kyan and Nagato are together. But then you see Kyan and Haruhi together, and their dynamic is just literally perfect. And that's those scenes, like the mangaka like really understood well. I'm assuming they translate it pretty like fairly, but if not the script writer or whatever. But they translated they adapted the relationship between Haruhi and Kyan really well, even though it's not from the original author. It feels that those particular scenes where they're just talking, Kyan and Haruhi, felt almost like I was watching a continuation of the original show, and it was amazing. That's what makes a relationship makes her character work, is her relationship, particularly with Kyan, to an extent with the other characters. I mean it is a little it can't be a little hard seeing her uh abuse of poor Mikuru, who has done not much to deserve it. I mean, of course, her role in the story, like she's there out of essentially because that's her job, but and we see the future Mikuru looks back on these past times as pretty joyful, happy times, and doesn't regret it. But at times it's pushing it a little bit on Haruhi's abuse of Mikuru, which, like I said, the show does address at a point. So it's not lacking in self awareness. But I'm getting way off point. What I was referring to specifically is Kyan and Haruhi's the contrast between the two makes really is the foundation of the show and what makes it so great, because Haruhi is bubbly and believes in all these things and wants to go out and adventure and see the world and do all these things. She's full of fun and just wants to get out there and do everything and be everything. And yeah, she's just a lot. She's a lot to handle. And Kyon is very reserved, laid back. I mean, it literally the show opens with him saying why he doesn't when he stopped believing in these types of things. It's very it's a very clear and intentional parallel that it establishes right off the bat. And his snide remarks and sarcasm is what makes it work, because we have this representation of basically of hope and positivity and fun against the constant extra realism of Kyon, where he's always putting it all down and always like, I can't believe it. But then he goes along with it anyways. So we have this playful relationship, and it's a very comical one. Like, and especially they address this. It's like half of the things I want to bring up. It's like it's addressed in the show if you just pay attention. In the film, they specifically address his seeming apathy, which is really just him sort of lying to himself. And so he doesn't really change his personality, but he sort of comes to accept, I do want to do this. So, yeah, I'm gonna complain and I'm gonna, joke about Haruhi's idiotic ideas, but I'm still having I'm still I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. And it's a pretty big moment. So, yeah, I'm just like running out of things to say, but she works on just every level, and from her design to her character, her voice actor in both the sub and the dub, you know, with voice actors, of course, it can be hard to talk about, especially for me, because it's very foreign. I've played around with writing, I've played around with animating. It's something those things are more familiar to me. I've read about how to write good and what good animation is. I know like at least some of the basics and how to express my feelings on those types of things. Music, of course, is a very important aspect in my life. So, of course, I know I'm pretty decent, I'd say, at expressing my emotions on that. But with voice acting, it's never something I've ever really dabbled in, though I have had some interest in it. But I mean, what can I say? Her voice is pretty iconic in both the sub and the dub. And while I do think the sub edges out over, Kyan's voice is definitely the dub is equal, if not better. But you can, especially in the earlier seasons, you can see some of the dub voice actors' weaknesses they're pretty apparent, though it definitely grows to be much better later on in the series. And I mean, it's still good. I can still hear her voice rattling away in my brain, uh, maybe driving me insane if I'm not already. But yeah, Haruhi, she's iconic, amazing. I love her. Well, what else is there to say? I think that'll be all for today. So thank you guys for watching. If you did watch all the way through, thank you. You guys rock, and I'm glad to see people are enjoying my content. I have a lot of plans in store for the future. I don't want to make an official announcement yet, but I will say I'm kicking around the idea of doing a Ghibli month, perhaps in February, maybe January, if I can get enough videos done ahead of time. But that would mean approximately 30 videos, each one focusing on a different either Ghibli or notable pre-Ghibli movie, and all of them talking about like different elements. One of them, I've already written two scripts, one on Nausicaa and one on Castle in the Sky. So, and that Castle in the Sky will unless I come up with any great idea in the next month or so, be my next video where be my next analyzing the music of video, which I am sure some of you would be very excited for. But yeah, I'm just rambling on. I'll see you guys next time.